We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hello, this is Tika Lark Fleming, and this is MPC presents the Blk Grrrl Show, and we have an exciting show for this Saturday, January 10th at 3 p.m. But before we have our exciting guest, I am going to do the Breaking the Table. And the title this time is called Black Politicians' Objective Shouldn't Be for Rich White Men to Give Them Money. Inglewood Mayor Butts thinks he can ram an 80,000-seat, environmentally unsound stadium down the throats of the residents of Inglewood, and he thinks he can break the law to do it. In OC Register story by Scott Reed, Butts and HPLC officials, and that's a Hollywood Park officials, said folding plans for the 60-acre stadium into plans for the Hollywood Park redevelopment through voter approval could allow the stadium project to avoid years of costly environmental and fiscal reviews. The California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, is a California statute passed in 1970. After the United States federal government passed the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, in 1969 to institute a statewide policy of environmental protection or environmental reviews in California. CEQA does not regulate land use, so this law has nothing to do with zoning. So if people say it's already zoned or Inglewood's already zoned for a football field, that's fine because CEQA does not have anything to do with zoning. What CEQA requires is that the state and local agencies within California to follow a protocol of analysis and public disclosure of environmental impacts of proposed projects and adopt all feasible measures to mitigate those impacts. What are the basic requirements of environmental review under CEQA? The environment review requires imposing both procedural and substantial requirements, and at the minimum, an initial review of the project and its environmental effects must be conducted. Depending on the potential effects, a further and more substantial review may be conducted at the time. A project may not be approved as submitted if feasible alternatives and mitigation measures are able to substantially lessen the significant environmental impacts of a project. And that means, in layperson's terms, if a project can be built better, it can be built more environmentally sound, that means it must be built that way. You can't just put stuff up. HP development mentions a stadium. So that means the Hollywood Park development that we have already mentions a stadium. So what the 2015 vote that Mayor Butts wants to propose on our ballot is attempting to do is skip over a new EIR, Environmental Impact Report, and use that EIR that was halfway done, that was done in 1995, 20 years ago, and then updated in 2009 for the Hollywood Park redevelopment plan. They mentioned in passing a football stadium. So what Mayor Butts and his rich owner, Stanley Ronk, wants to do is get this on the ballot for Inglewood and lie and say it won't skip the EIR. That is just what it is about us wanting a stadium in this city and built in the Hollywood Park development. The EIR was poorly done and poorly circulated, and the people, he'll say the people already said the EIR was already done, but it wasn't already done. There needs to be an environmental impact review, EIR, for this football stadium. The petition of the 2015 vote to use a prior EIR cannot happen because a mayor shouldn't be able to use his power to vote away environmental laws. Rich people shouldn't be able to circumvent the law that were put in place to protect communities from pollution, traffic, and quality of life issues. Tricks Butts will use. Number one, he will say the black portion of Inglewood, Morningside Park, Carlton Square, and Briarwood is a slum. We're all homeless, unemployed people from the ghetto, and why would we not all want these minimum wage jobs? In a white suburban community, there's no way you can mount a PR campaign about minimum wage jobs, an 80,000 square foot, 80,000 seat stadium, and traffic, and put that up as if it's helping people. Butts will have no problem, but if you view Inglewood from a racist perspective, from an anti-black perspective, and from a white supremacist perspective, it will work. And Butts has no problem using that perspective to get the stadium built. The nonprofit industrial complex will kick into full gear. They'll start with giving away backpacks and turkeys and give the media whatever impression they need to paint the black community around the forum as depressed and bad off. So, of course, we need to have a football stadium. Number two, what he will say is that you can't vote away the environmental review process, and that anyone who says that is a fool. And the only thing you're voting for is to get the stadium built. But that, of course, is a lie, because they already own the land. It's already been zoned. The money is already in place. So the only thing the 2015 initiative is trying to do is to avoid the EIR. Number three, what he may try to do is get a special law written like Isidore Hall did for City of Industry, and get that just to skip over the environmental review and get that built. So these are three things that Butts is going to try to do in order to get the stadium built. There will be more tricks, but that's what's going to go into effect. Even if you want the stadium, you should be troubled by the lack of disclosure, the obvious attempt at violating our state's environmental protection laws, and the complete disregard for disclosure, for our rights, for democracy. We voted for Mayor Butts. We voted for County Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas. We voted for Isidore Hall. We voted for George Dotson with the idea that they would be working for us, the people who they represent, and not rich people like Stan Kroenke, whose family gave $1.2 million in 2012 to right-leaning Republican candidates who favor oppressive policies. Politicians in LA will roll over for a turkey dinner and a plaque. Imagine the damage an active Republican who owns a LA football team married to a Walmart heir will do to an already very right-leaning neoliberal political landscape of South Los Angeles. And if he gets in South LA, he will be coming to the east side, he will be coming to the west side. Black people are just the testing grounds for the plans for everyone else. Cops murdering people don't start with cops. It starts with right-leaning policies, rich men, and weak politicians. Allowing that initiative to be on the ballot is a disrespect to the black community, the Los Angeles community, civil rights, and our environmental laws. Well, that was Tika Lark Fleming with Breaking the Table. So thank you. We'll be back in a moment.
At least that's what I'm told. I should have stayed at Margie's.
It's a hard black rain coming down flooded fields.
Hello, this is Tika Lark Fleming back with the second show of the Blk Grrrl Show. And I'm really happy to have our next guest, Lynn Manning. I'll read a little bit of a bio of Lynn Manning. Lynn Manning is a co-founder and artistic director of the Watts Village Theater Company. He is also an award-winning poet, playwright, actor, and former champion of blind judo. He has accomplished all of these after being shot and blinded by a stranger in a bar in Hollywood at age of 23. Originally an aspiring visual artist, Lynn turned his creative energies towards the literary arts. He now paints with words. He now paints with words. So So how are you doing, Lynn?
I'm doing well.
Oh, okay. Okay, good, good.
Glad to be here.
Okay.
Gotta be closer to the mic.
It's okay. We're all situated right now. You all situated now?
I believe so.
Okay, okay. So I always start off by asking people a question about Los Angeles. You're not a Los Angeles native, right? You're from...
Well, I was born in Fresno, but I've been here since 3 years old, so I'm an Angelino.
You're an Angelino.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite bus line in Los Angeles?
Wow. I have to say that would be the old 207 down Western.
Oh, why is that?
It connects with several neighborhoods I lived in when growing up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. My favorite bus line is, I guess I have to say the 210.
The 210.
The 210. You know, it goes from the South Bay all the way to Hollywood. You know that bus line.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it goes all along Crenshaw. That's a famous bus line.
Right.
So let us talk a little bit about your play Weights. And that kind of was an autobiography.
Yes, it's an autobiographical piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's a play I wrote, I guess, maybe 10 years after getting into playwriting. It was the first solo piece I wrote for just for me to perform, and I thought it was time. I take the audience on a journey from the night I was shot in a bar on Vine Street in Hollywood, and take them on the roller coaster ride of recovery and flashbacks to growing up in Los Angeles, and how growing up in one of the most impoverished areas of LA helped me, prepared me to deal with the loss of my sight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what neighborhood in Los Angeles did you grow up in?
Originally, the first 9, almost 10 years of my life were spent in the area of Adams and Central Avenue, what had once been, the core community of African American life in LA, but it was not that in 1965 or it's 1960 during the years that I was living there. It was a community in most significant decline during that time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, why did you start the Watt? Well, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna kind of go back a little bit.
All right.
You were a visual artist.
I was. That was my aspiration, was to be Black Salvador Dali or something. His kind of work I liked. Ernie Barnes' work I liked. I aspired to be that, and to expatriate someday to France. but the world has its own inclinations, and so when I got shot, I was 23 years old at the time when I got shot and blinded. I was somewhat prepared to expect that possibility, because my life coming up had been filled with all sorts of mishaps and tragedies and losses and all of that. So when I was 18, I had asked myself, what's the worst possible thing that can happen to you? And considering that I wanted to be and was a visual artist, I said, well, the worst thing that could happen would be for me to go blind. And I asked myself if I could deal with that. And if I thought I could, how would I do it? And since the literary arts had always been my second love, I decided that that's how I would deal with it. I would turn my creative energies toward the written word, poetry and prose. And so when that bullet took my sight in '78, I woke up in the hospital bed determined to become a writer.
So it was kind of bizarre that you kind of already had Plan B, worst case scenario. So, I mean, why did you decide screenwriting? You had poetry, screenwriting. You could have written a book. Why was being a playwright, especially in Los Angeles? Everybody wants to be a screenwriter. Why did you decide to go into playwriting instead of?
Well, playwriting wasn't my original direction, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Poetry was the first thing I was deep into. Of course, there's some career you can make out of poetry, but and the only career that's worse than poetry probably is playwriting.
It is.
But I started out writing poetry while exploring short story writing and novel writing. Ultimately, those were the things I intended to do, and I set out to write an autobiography, which was my major endeavor, along with the poetry and the autobiography and some essays. That's the kind of work I was doing. But when I started getting my poems published, it led to me being asked to participate in publication parties, and these literary magazines that published my work would have the playwrights would have the poets come out to to these reading events and read from the work, read from the collections, and to audiences and bookstores and theaters, and poetry venues in the early 80s. I suffered great stage fright back in the day. Back in time, I was speaking in front of people was the worst possible thing I could imagine. So I did not read my work at these things. I would use the excuse that I'm blind and I can't read it off the page to ask someone else to do it. And I don't, they may have been, good poets, but they didn't do justice to reading my work. They just like it sucked what they did to my stuff. And I decided, well, if I'm going to do something about this, if I want this done right, I'm going to have to get over this stage fright and do it myself. So I set out to do that initially. So first I had to memorize my work whenever possible. And when it wasn't possible, I had to come up with a way to read it. I couldn't read Grrrl fast enough to read out loud. So I came up with a way to record it and listen to it through an earphone and recite along with myself if I didn't have it memorized. So that's what I did, and that and half a pint of peppermint schnapps would knock this
That's what I was wondering. I was wondering. I'm like, where were you? You're a little bit late today.
Knock the fear out. So that helped me get past the stage fright, and something wonderful happened. The audience response to my work and to my delivery was so profoundly positive and uplifting that I wanted some more of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in pursuit of more readings,
Mm-hmm.
more classes in acting,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted some more live interaction with audiences. That led me to theater and play work, and which, since I was a storyteller already, it led me to exploring the possibility of telling stories with plays.
And you founded the Watts Village. You co-founded the Watts Village Theater company. Why did you do that? I mean, I'm always curious for people who are artists who start art galleries or publishing companies or theaters.
Yeah. Well,
You wanted to lose more money?
I was seduced into it by my friend and colleague Quentin Drew.
Mm-hmm.
He's no longer with us, but he was an actor, activist from Watts.
Mm-hmm.
I had lived around Watts at certain points in my life, and we were brought together in a production by Cornerstone Theater Company. They had a residency in Watts where they produced 3 plays out there, and they would fashion the play around the community, or around subjects, issues in the community and stuff. They hired me on as commissioned playwright
Mm-hmm.
to adapt a play for them to unify or include both the African American, Black, and Latino communities.
Yeah.
And it was a Bertolt Brecht project, and it was a huge thing. I got into it. I got to sort of get engaged in a real grassroots way with folks from the community and with other artists, and this act of creating and standing up and producing this play was beyond cathartic. It was, it felt like it had to happen again and again and again. And it had to happen in that community of Watts and South LA, where normally that kind of art doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so Quentin lived in Watts,
Mm-hmm.
wanted to follow up that production. Central Ave Chalk Circle was the production. Ultimately, it won the Ovation Award for Best Intimate Theater Production that year,
Mm-hmm.
95. So in 96, Quentin and I and a couple other artists that recruited on the playwright side, Sharon Beatty and Marilyn Murphy, G.C. James, we all came together and kick-started our own theater company.
And back in the 80s, Kickstarter didn't mean
No, it didn't have anything to do with the internet. This was
you just started, yeah.
Yeah, we just started. I don't want to confuse anybody. No.
Yeah.
Nobody gave us any money. On the outset, I think we had a little bit of startup stipend from Cornerstone Theater Company.
Mm-hmm.
I luckily had a national commercial going on at the time, so and so that was a little extra cash to grease the wheel with if needed, and we set out to raise funds, get grants, Cultural Affairs Department, California Arts Council, places like that, to see what was available out to support an emerging arts organization with artists that had a track record, and my playwriting track record was swelling at the time in 96, 97.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we got some support from the California Arts Council. We got some support from the Cultural Affairs Department, and we got some support from artists and people in the community who let us use their facilities and places like that.
So is LA a theater town, and is Black LA a theater town?
That's well, LA is a theater town like no other theater town. It's a small theater town.
Mm-hmm.
There's a tremendous amount of theater being produced by companies like Watts Village Theater Company, a small, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 person, company that's out of a nonprofit trying to make it happen. There's a lot of innovative theater created that way, but it's not a place to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
In theater. The main theaters like the Center Theater Group, like the Geffen now, and the South Coast. I guess it's the Seagramston Center,
Mm-hmm.
and places like that. They're few and far between. Therefore, if you bank in to make do a lot of work in one of those facilities, it's not a realistic possibility.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a group of dedicated artists, a collective, a board of directors that's willing to put in some work to bring in some support funds for your work, and you're willing to, leave the time clock behind and work when you have to, you can make something happen here in LA.
So what's going on at Watts, the Watts Village Theater now, and how can we help and support it?
Okay, where's my mic?
Right
I'm
there.
in there. Just making sure I'm in the mix. So I get turned around. Well, let's see. What we're about now, we just closed off our 2014 season. We're going forward. We're going into, just like next week, we're starting up our collaboration with the Locke High School or Locke College Prep cluster in Watts. We do after school production. We're in class and after school production. We develop a new play with the input of the students, and then we take them through the process of what it is to design that play, to stage that play, to rehearse, and mount a full production for an audience. So we'll be working with that group. We'll have teaching artists in the mix for that group beginning next week and ending week before Memorial Day. So that's a big part of our program. That's our educational program.
Mm-hmm.
We're also reaching out to another school, Yo Watts, Youth Opportunities High School, and we'll be exploring with them, establishing an after-school theater program for them. The issue is that the arts, a lot of the schools, I don't believe there is a campus in Watts proper that is not a charter school now, and
What is that? Whoa, that's very disturbing.
It can be. The arts have been slashed tremendously from the it's not asked for or called for in the testing
Yes.
regimen. So it's had been laid aside. So to have the opportunity to bring art, the literary arts, the theatrical performing arts into these schools is a great thing. Because as a performing artist myself, I know the value and the pride it has brought me to and the things I've discovered and learned about myself and mankind through the arts and the pursuit of the arts and the collaboration with other people that theater requires. It's a great thing. So that's our educational program. We're launching a collaboration between myself and a poet and performance artist, Leroy Moore, out of Berkeley, who founded an organization called Crip Hop Nation. And it's performing artists with disabilities, and they tour around. They just came back from the UK.
I'm actually playing them. They're one of my songs, like counter clockwise. I was like, I know them. I know that genre of music.
Okay. Well, I'm collaborating with Leroy Moore. We're writing a play together.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're doing a play called the tentative title is it's a Crip Hop Nation, Where My Crippled Homies At.
Oh my God! Okay, that is great.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Lynn, for talking with me. What I'm going to do is put all the information from the Watts Village Theater Company below this video, and in the video, so everybody can know how to get in touch with you.
Great.
And let me see, is there a book you have?
There's a book here, yeah. It's a book that's just recently come out. It's available through Amazon. It's Private Battle and Other Plays by Lynn Manning.
Okay.
It's 3 plays that I wrote that Watts Village Theater Company produced, and all profits go to the theater company.
All right. So you guys heard it. You guys heard it here, and I'm holding up your book so people can see it.
Great.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lynn.
All right, thank you.
All right. So this is the MPC presents the Blk Grrrl Show, and we're live 3 p.m. every Saturday. We're going to go on a break, and when we get back, we're going to be talking to Derrick Maddox. So thanks so much, Lynn Manning. Catch us on iTunes R&B, Radio 355, and LATalkLive.com.
To my demise, I live fast, drink fast, fuck fast.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Got to have a little esperanza to get by. Baby, hold your head up.
Hi, this is Frank.
And this is Ruslan.
Inviting you to join us every Thursday at noon Pacific Time for the Cool Classics.
Join us as we discuss classical cool in the arts. What has happened, what is happening, and what will happen.
So don't forget to tune in to the Cool Classics
Every Thursday at noon Pacific.
exclusively on LATalkLive.com.
You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, Radio Flag, TuneIn Radio, Live 365, Aha Radio, TiVo Radio, and Apple TV Radio.
Or just watch and listen directly to Cool Classics on LATalkLive.com.
Classic radio, handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure.
This is LA Talk Live, and this is Frank.
And this is Ruslan.
And we are more than just talk!
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hello world, how you living? This is D. Brex, your host of the all-new rap project here on LA Talk Live. That's latalklive.com. Or you can find me on iTunes Radio in the R&B section. That's the Rap Project every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's Wednesdays at 7 p.m. West Coast time, so don't be late. On the Rap Project, I will be playing the very best of rap and hip-hop that goes beyond the ordinary. So connect with me, your host, D. Brax, the rap connoisseur, on the Rap Project every Wednesday at 7 right here on latalklive.com, where we are more than just talk.
When I see you, I lose all sensation in my pussy.
It's Tika Lark Fleming, and we're back with the Blk Grrrl Show. But now we have Derrick Maddox. Hello, Derrick. How are you?
Yeah.
Well, I could read a whole bio, but the only important part of your bio is MFA from CalArts, right?
Well, I guess,
in Los Angeles, that's pretty much the only thing that matters. You can pretty much do anything. You can kill someone with that, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. They start shaking in their boots. They're like, you?
Yeah,
It
you.
can't be.
Yeah. So I always start off with actually, it's not really an LA question. I know that you're very into music. So what song has had the biggest impact on your life?
Well, we kind of talked about this before. It's like, that is almost like an impossible question because I like so much different music.
Mm-hmm.
But
come closer.
Come closer. Is this better?
That's better.
Okay. Like one of the things, when I was in college that kind of changed my life is, and I know this is going to be hard for a lot of black people to handle because we're only supposed to listen to R&B and stuff like that. But Jane's Addiction, Jane says, was really had a profound effect on me because, at that time I was doing a lot of poetry and the songwriting that talked about very real events. And the diversity of music, them having the steel drums and stuff in the background, and the mixture of cultures was very, very powerful to me. And and I thought, that's how life is really, especially in LA. You go from different sections from town to town, and if you don't have a mixture of all that in you, I don't think you're Los Angeles. I don't think That's just my thing right there.
Yeah. And you're from San Jose, right? So
San Jose.
So how'd you get to Los Angeles? How did that come about?
A very, very, very strange journey, because basically I grew up in San Jose, and I spent time in the north side, but during my junior high school and high school, my parents moved to South San Jose, and which is very, very white. There was 20 black people at my school, what I mean? And it was very different for me because I just felt completely isolated. Mm-hmm. I know that was a good thing for, my parents, we're going to get you a good education. You're going to be a well-taught person, right?
Yeah.
And, so I did receive that, even though I was at, a public high school. But then it just threw, like, a kind of monkey wrench in the game because, my English is quite good.
Yeah.
So when I would talk to black people, they would be like, "Oh, you're white."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Wait a minute, I'm not white. I'm black. Look, hey, you see this?
Yeah.
I'm black."
Yeah.
And so by some miracle, I got to go to UCSD. I mean,
I think because you were smart.
well,
How many times you can get lucky?
well, according to the standardized testing, I wasn't so smart. On my SAT, I got like 780 for both tests, which is completely not good.
Oh yeah. I mean, so,
Okay, but once I got into college, it was like I was like at Disneyland. I was like, "Oh my God, this is where all the information is."
Yeah.
So I was just running around getting information, and I wasn't very much go to class kind of guy. You know what I mean?
No, that's shocking. That's shocking.
You know what I mean? And
Okay.
every time my professors and stuff, they'd see me sitting on the hump, which is like the center area at UCSD. They're like, "You haven't been coming to class." And I always look at them and said, "That's because I'm doing case study."
Doing case study.
And I really was.
Yeah.
Because I would read all this information and I would see how people would interact, and if I had questions, I'd go to their office hours. But a lot of them just found that completely bizarre. You know what I mean? Because I just come in with all these questions and well thought out ideals, and then how I got to Cal Arts. I really love this story. It's just kind of strange. My really, this is like my mentor. She knows me so well. Dee Dee Halleck from UCSD. She started Paper Tiger in New York and Public Access in New York. And one day when, I was getting ready to graduate, she saw "Derrick, what are you going to do with your life?" And I was all like, I just don't want to work for a corporation.
Yeah.
And she's all like, "Well, I want you to come to my office at 2:30 in the morning, and we're going to talk about what you're going to do." And I'm like, "What? 2:30 in the morning?" But she the reason why it was 2:30 in the morning because she split time between California and New York, and she was going to New York the next morning, so she had to pack up her stuff or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it was already bizarre, and there was no sexual thing in none of that stuff. But so I'm like 2:30 in the morning, so I go there, right? And she starts, again, she asked me the question, what do you want to do with your life? And I'm like, again, Dee Dee, like I said earlier, I just don't want to work for a corporation. And she's all like, "Well, I think you need to go to art school, and I think to go to Cal Arts." I didn't even know what a Cal Arts was, and I was like, "Well, what am I going to show them?" And she's all like, "Show them some of your videos," which I did 2. You know what I mean? So I really had no idea. And, I just kind of blew her off whatever, you're just saying stuff. So the next day I came to, wish her goodbye, and she had a train ticket, a list of all the people I was supposed to see. And I was like, this lady is smart. She was so smart because she knew if she bought me a plane ticket and did all that stuff, I'd feel so guilty that I would have to go. So that's basically how I ended up at Cal Arts.
In Los Angeles.
Exactly. So as you see, it's just I've never really planned anything out. It just sort of kind of happens.
What is that? Give me that. What's that helmet? Let me see this helmet. What is this?
This is when you drive in LA, you got to have protection, and this is my rush hour traffic my garb, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also I'm an Afronaut, so I got to get that in there too.
Okay. You are an installation artist. Can you kind of give people kind of a rundown of what that means? Because I think people go, "Oh, artist." They just think, "Oh, you paint pictures or you do photography." You do all those things too. But what, your whole thing is kind of like installation. Can you give us a little rundown of that?
Well, my thing is really more than like say installation, but site specific installation, and it's a very organic process. It's like someone will say like, Derrick, because I'm not like most artists, like, who like, oh, well, I'm painting, I got these 20 paintings that I painted and here they are.
Yeah.
My thing's a little bit more organic, and it deals with like, politics, community politics, where the space actually is, and what ideals start to flow to my head when I get there. So it might start off with, usually it starts off with some type of either a written thought from myself, or a written passage that I read, or a comment that someone else says, and then all of a sudden these ideals start coming to me, and then what I do is I call myself a hunter-gatherer. I'm very much in the, as I found out in art school, I didn't know before, but
Yeah.
I'm very much in the line of John Outerbridge and David Hammonds and Noah Purifoy, and to put some women in there too, Betty Saar, because they were all found object kind of people. But I didn't know that at the time. I would just like, because I didn't have painting skills. I didn't have all, I wasn't really a photographer. I didn't really know what I do. I was just kind of like, shaking in my pants, really, because I was just like, you got to make something, but you don't know what you're doing. So I'm like, let's go collect junk and put it together. That might, do something. But as I started doing that, I found out that it was more of like, a kind of like spiritual path for me, because the more stuff that I would find, it was actually like you hear this all the time, that the work is speaking to me, but no, it's speaking to me. Like, I'd walk by like, a beat up chair, and it'd say like, you know what, you got to take me home. And I'm like, I don't even know why I need to take you home. Like, no, you got to take me home,
Yeah.
And so, like, I pretty much live by this process. Like, one funny story I have, like, describing this process. I was at home, and I'm on the computer. I'm playing, doing some Photoshop, because I do that, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a little voice in my head was like, you got to go to the thrift store. And I'm like, why do I got to go to the thrift store? You need to go right now. I'm not making anything. Go to the thrift store, all right? So I go to the thrift store, walking through the aisles, and there's this like, it's a prefabricated bottle that you would see, kind of like a tequila bottle, like a Patron bottle, but it had a weird crooked neck. It was blue, and it was a fabricated bottle. And then the little voice in my head is like, you need to get that bottle. And I was like, I didn't bring any money. You need to go get that bottle. So I go home, get the money, come back, and, I buy the bottle, bring it back home, and I'm like, now I got the bottle, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm doing my thing. I set it on my little altar. I'm doing my thing, and all of a sudden, all this information started coming. Basically, I was looking at the computer, looking at my exhibit that I had up at CAM, which is the Diverted Destruction 6, and it was a tribute piece to Noah Purifoy. And I started looking at this piece, and all of a sudden I just started downloading all this information as if the piece was actually explaining it to me, and there was like so many different aspects that I didn't see before when I put it in, but the symbols in there, because I'm very much into symbols, and I was like, oh my God, this is just like incredible, like, so I started writing it down and telling people, but now I could tell them and point to the things in the show, and there was no denying it. All these people were dropping their jaws like, oh my God, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on here? Is this why I got the bottle?
Yeah.
But
yeah, that was why he got the bottle. Wow. Okay. So who is so weird now, and I now feel like asking. Now I'm asking you these questions that are like real basic. So, who's your favorite artist? I mean, after that.
Well, okay, and, this is gonna cause some controversy too, because again, being a person, even though I went to Cal Arts, I'm pretty much self-taught, and how I analyze stuff. My favorite artist, this is gonna drive people nuts in the art world or whatever, is this homeless cat that lived down my street called Pablo Luis Rodriguez.
Yeah.
And I used to just like look at this cat like, oh my God, he's like the best like installation artist / performance artist, and he don't even know it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He had this, he's a Latino American homeless cat who had this shopping cart, but he would have these like.
Close to the mic.
He would have these. Come closer to the mic. He would have these big. He had these 4 pinwheels like in the corners of the cart, like on the inside, and they would have these American flags, and he would push this thing, and all kinds of stuffed animals and stuff on it, and he would push this thing around and just
I know
park
that guy.
He is amazing. I used to just
I
be
know,
like,
I've seen him.
yes,
Oh,
'cause
you talked to him.
Yes.
Okay.
He's he was a staple in the neighborhood for like 10 years, and then I don't know exactly what happened to him. I think, due to health reasons, he got taken away. And I actually had the cart for a minute. But then when he came back out of wherever he was, I brought it back to him. And he was just like, oh, my God. I'm like, yeah, this is yours. But like that type of things, he was saying some things that were so political to me that he didn't even know it. Here he was, this person who was so proud to be in this country, but yet they didn't give a fuck about him. You know what I mean? And I thought that was like one of the most passionate statements that you can make. Did he study Derrida? Did he know French theory? Did he know German philosophy? No, but he had a need to express, and that's that's pretty much my standpoint. Is like this whole art school thing demonizes so many like creative people because you didn't go to school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, there's people like who are very, very talented. What does this French theory and German philosophy have to do with their upbringing? Like, if you're in Compton, what does Derrida mean to you? It doesn't mean anything. What does Andy Warhol mean to you? It doesn't mean a thing. So I try to approach, one, develop my own philosophies because I think I'm a pretty smart guy,
Yeah.
and 2, to see how that actually works in the world, and to make work that's for the everyday average Joe. Like, my work will speak to, higher forms, art school, museums, and all that. But I want to touch the people who are walking in the street, because my main thing is, like, the street is so magical. How many times have you, like, you had to go, like, I don't know how much you're doing it, but, like, as a guy, you got to go to the bathroom, and you go around the corner, and you go do your thing, and all of a sudden there's this amazing thing there. And you're like, and then the next time you may go to show someone and it's gone. And I love that, the temporality of it all. But here in this society, it's all about consumerism. How long can I keep it? I'm going to put it in my collection and put it in a show. I'm not saying don't buy my stuff, but but when it comes down to it, is art about commodity, or is it a spiritual thing? What are you trying to communicate to people?
So, what is do you feel that the future of art, you think it's in galleries, museums, or the street? Where do you think the future? Do you think that, as far as actual art and not decorative commercial type stuff that people can kind of go, oh, look, I have the latest, almost like a purse in my house. Where do you think art's going to go?
Well, I think it can exist in both places, right? I think it can exist in the museum, if or galleries, if there's the proper mindset behind those museum and galleries. And I definitely think that it lives in the street all the time, but it's not in what we term to be art, like, you know, as far as like, you know, academic wise, but there's like some powerful stuff that's out there. Like, you know, I'm very much into street art, you know, but could I actually live off that? Yeah, I'm gonna build this piece and live it on the street and just someone take it. So that's like kind of the conflict that you deal with, and something that you know, I've been dealing with for a long time. But, you know, I kind of like, you know, found a solution through the work of Andy Goldsworthy, who was like would make these amazing like cairns out of stone, like in you know, in the beds of rivers or the shore of the beach, knowing that they were going to get destroyed. So he was able to maintain his meditative process while making this work. But at the same time, before they got destroyed, he took a picture of it, right? And you could buy the picture. Yeah, hey, you could buy the picture.
You buy the picture of the temporary thing.
Yeah. But it was, but these things are what he built was very amazing, to the point where you're like, you know, how did he do that? But they're no longer there, and that's what I loved about it. But if you want to, you know, if you need to take a piece of that home, he's more than happy to give you the picture, which you could have, but it doesn't destroy his meditative process while making the work.
So how do you feel that computers have kind of changed art? I mean, has it made it, I mean, do you think that computers can be part of fine art, or, you know,
well,
like even Photoshop? I mean, some people kind of like, oh, that's. How do you feel that can be incorporated, or has it been incorporated into art in a legit way? Or
well, you know, because, you know, I do Photoshop. You know, I'm pretty good, they would say. But one of my things was what you're just talking about. I was like, oh, okay, that looks great on the screen, but is it really real? Okay, to me, like, you know, anything on the screen is really like, you know, fourth dimensional. How do you bring it in 3D world and something that is artistic? So what I came across after, you know, again, one of these things of trying to figure stuff out, I started making handmade paper and finding out ways to like, you know, take the digital image and print them on the paper, but not only that, but to incorporate, you know, some painting aspects on the paper and stuff. So when you actually print it on there, it's no longer like a digital. It has a real feel to it, and it has a real life, instead of something that you can make 24 cards of. You know what I mean? It could be a singular item.
So what? I mean, what do you feel in regards to the difference between LA and New York in regards to the different scenes? Because I heard, like, in New York that people it's not so segregated. I'm not just talking about race, but I'm talking about like art, like visual artists, musicians, poets all hang out together. And in LA, it's not really that way. I mean, is that a fair assessment?
I wouldn't know. People get on me about that too, because, you know, I'm so much about, like, you know, art now.
Yeah.
It's like I could really care less about the scenes. You know, if they're like, have you, you know, heard of this artist or seen this magazine or seen that? And my process is more like, when I come upon it, that's when it's time for me to see it. You know, I'm not trying to run out and figure out what everyone else is doing, because that's what's killing art in the first place. It's just like, you got everyone trying to get into these magazines, so they're reading these magazines and they're like, well, I need to make something that looks like this so I can get in the magazine. I could care less, you know, because again, my experience is exploring myself and see what I can do. Like every installation or thing that I've done, it's always something I've never done before. Like when I start, I'm like, you know, I'm basically like shitting bricks. Like, oh, why couldn't you just do this? Why do you have to like do this crazy thing or so? Because people get on me about my stuff being a little bit elaborate, but
my a little bit.
Yeah. They're like, you can't do that. That's too difficult. And I'm like, who said?
Well, before we wrap up, I want to ask you: is there anything that you're doing that you could talk about? I know you're doing a lot, but anything that you're doing?
Trying to get a job.
That's never going to happen. You're an artist. That's your job. All righty. That was Tika Lark. That was Tika Lark presents the Blk Grrrl Show. I would like to thank Derrick Maddox very much for coming on the show, and Lynn Manning. Make sure you get his playbook from Amazon. I will put all the links to all the guests below so that we can find them and you can look them up. Thank you so much for talking to me. And we have a book fair on March 7th. So please participate. If you want more information on that, I'll also put that below. March 7th, the Blk Grrrl Book Fair at Cielo Galleries and Studios. And thank you, Richard Carr, for engineering. Have a great Saturday.
They say I'm different, and that's why they say I'm strange. I'm talking about Big Mama Talk. Talk about it, talk about it. Sweet 16.
Many choices of internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.